It's just fucked up that like AI now they're like, how did fucking computers become the thing and machines became the thing that does art and humans are the ones in fucking Amazon warehouses? Yeah. Like shouldn't the robots be working so we could paint? Why the fuck do you type like Superman with tits and blonde hair into a computer and the computer does it, and then it's like, but some guy's putting a 16-hour shift for no fucking money. Why aren't the robots the fucking slaves? How are humans the fucking slaves?
Yeah.
And we should have lives of leisure with the AI. It should be the coolest thing of all time, but that's not how it happens.
We need to get some Albanian robots.
We need to get some out that don't know. Yeah, exactly. You want them to be Albanian because they're not going to get smart like Skynet. They know their place.
Dude, you see that Chat GPT?
It's just fucked up that like.
That's exactly how I feel. Wisecrack said this one day ago, and this is from LOL. Stabby goated for bringing this on Theo. All I can say is like, Stabby legitimately is. We need to lean into Stabby core. Like, this is an unironic position that I have. Is that if the left is dirtbaggy, I'm of it. Okay? And that's what we need more of. And we need to stop using the term ableist. Okay? We need to stop using the term ableist. I'm banning the term ableist. All right? The only time where it even makes sense is when people are insulting someone for being disabled or using the R slur, which is just bigotry. But the word ableist being associated with the left is just, we need to stop it. We need to stop it. And here's what I mean. It's like, if you do an activity that a well-adjusted, neurotypical, able-bodied person does, that's not ableist. It's not ableist to clap your hands. It's not ableist to cook yourself a meal. It's not ableist to go pick up your own takeout. It's not ableist to say that people should do those things, okay? That's not ableism, all right? And I think the biggest thing that happened, the Tumblr left did, is they made like telling somebody to clean up their room ableist, when it's really just, these are teenagers. These are teenagers online outsmarting you. It's like going into a 16-year-old's bedroom when you're their parent and being like, wow, it's a fucking pigsty in here. Clean your room. And they're like, I'm sorry, my ADHD, blah, blah, blah. They're just coming out with bullshit because they don't want to clean their room. Stop being outsmarted by teenagers and say, I don't give a fuck what your psychologist says. Clean your fucking room or you're not going out tonight. And you know what? Suddenly, the ADHD kid is going to figure out a way to clean up their fucking room because they have motivation. They want to go out and hang out with their friends. It's the same thing with like, oh, you telling me to read theory or I'm not a real leftist? Okay, ableist. My dyslexia doesn't. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Your dyslexia isn't blocking you from reading shit. Shut the fuck up. Get an audiobook. This is, you know, I'm sorry, but this is my most unwoke take, and I'm never, ever going to change on this position. It's literally the CIA playbook. Bring up irrelevant issues as frequently as possible, haggle over precise wordings, advocate caution, be worried about the propriety of any decision. Ugh. Fuck these people. Mike from PA never beating the hell. If Helen Keller can write books, what's your fucking excuse? Anyone can make push updates to the Doge website? Oh no. Oh no. These expert left their database open. They should have just done. They should have just done it, man. They should have just done it. Okay, so what are we talking about today? Sorry for ranting. I just wanted to talk about the AI thing. Because I like the AI wake song. People are like, ew, AI. And you know what? I agree with you, honestly. I really do. It's just, honestly, and I want to say this. I think a lot of people are starting to accept communism again. It's kind of working. It's kind of working. My slow, insidious pushing for pro-communism is working. Have you seen this? It's great. Jon Stewart almost sounds like a lefty. No, he doesn't. He sucks. He fucking sucks.
Dollars a year on condoms for the Taliban, and you're like,
He fucking sucks. I'm an anti-Jon Stewart. I'm anti-Jon Stewart. I'll watch his content, but I'm just anti-Jon Stewart. And I think that your ability to understand that Jon Stewart sucks is a key test of your wherewithal, of your discernment. Like, who is he bringing on? Is he bringing me on? Who the fuck is Jen Paskey? Who gives a shit? Less people watch her than me. That's true. Less people watch Jen Paskey than watch Hassan. Is Hassan going on Jon Stewart? Why the fuck is it nonstop shit libs, scumbag Democrats? Because that's what he is. All right? That's who he promotes. He's anti-Bernie, man. Like, I know he tries to steal progressive energy for clout purposes, but he's not on our side, guys. You got to have better discernment. All right? Like, you really do. And I think it's one of those things with a lot of people on the left are so desperate for legitimacy and so desperate to be like told, yeah, their ideas aren't crazy, that anytime some scumbag says it, people pour into their communities and boost them up. And they're not one of us. Okay? He's not one of us. Jon Stewart is so much worse than John Oliver. John Oliver is quadrillion times better than Jon Stewart. It's not even close. It just is what it is. He's at the top of Edigermentum's newest tier list. Fuck Edigermentum. He's another fucking liberal. Like, who gives a fuck? Edigermentum is also not one of us. He's an upper middle class 20-year-old who got on Chapo because he was posting under an avatar that was Silvio Berlusconi. So people in their minds edited his posts into that of a 30-year-old man. Like, people should stop talking about him. The moment he said that Kamala Harris, it wasn't going to be close, and Kamala Harris is going to win, and blah, 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 blah. Like, it was wrong about everything he said. Like, you should just stop. He's a 20-year-old. He has no fucking juice. Shut the fuck up about Edigermentum the liberal. He sucks. He fucking sucks. And he's not even funny. Like, if he was funny, I would let it slide, but he's not funny. So sad Hassan brought him on, to be honest. My little disagree. I mean, it is what it is, right? It is what it is, right? Like, you guys are expecting merit to matter. You guys expect merit to matter. And the answer is it doesn't. It's social climbing. Why do you think people social climb instead of focusing on merit? Because social climbing is what works. Why do you think so many shit movies get made? You don't think there's a ton of talented artists and writers out there that are putting out really thought-provoking content? The reason why shit movies get made is because the people have social connections to the people making decisions on which movies to buy. It's that fucking simple. You live in a nepotism world. That's the truth. So just keep that in mind. So you need to start valuing merit in your own life and stop valuing people that are connected. Morena and Claudia Sheinbaum have kept up Mexico's move to the left. It's not letting me read that. I guess the nation is forcing you to subscribe now, huh? Which is fair. Just found out Louisiana's DOH is ending max vaccination drives. It's about to be World War Z. I mean, it's just, what could he say? He was anti-union in the 90s. He's still got the same energy. He's anti against anything to his left. I would say Jon Stewart is smart in the sense that he understands that the best way to grow online, and this is true of people like Brian Tyler Cohen. Have you guys seen that guy? Or what's the other? David Pakman. They understand that as long as you don't punch left, you can grow tremendously, and then once you get some clout, then you turn right. It's a media strategy of selling out, which is like you'll go like, ooh, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have good ideas, and I kind of like them. You get a bunch of clout off of it, and then you sell out to the mainstream. Like that is a strategy. And so when I see it happening, and you can tell somebody wants to do that strategy based on their kind of doing what Jon Stewart's doing, which is like Jen Psaki is fucking a Biden war criminal supporter. Like, what the fuck is she doing here? Like, she has nothing. She has no insight. She's dumb as fuck. Did you hear about a U.S. aircraft carrier having a collision with a merchant vessel on the coast of Egypt? Hey guys, why is an aircraft carrier on the coast of Egypt? I'm currently organizing in Houston. Wanted to know your opinion on DSA versus PSL. My answer is I would do both, quite frankly. But my feeling is both suck. If I'm being honest, I think DSA and PSL both suck. I'm on an honesty day today, which is to say that DSA has way too many liberals and PSL has way too many smelly guys. These are just facts. Okay. And I like PSL, actually. I do like PSL, but my problem is that discernment is not valued in some of these more radical spaces, which makes sense, right? Like if you're a person who is like rational and you only care about yourself, you're not going to end up in PSL, right? You're going to end up as a lib because you're going to be trying to advance your career. Because everybody thinks like a liberal here. So these are both the problems. Now, here's the thing. I love PSL, and DSA has smelly guys too, and everything has smelly guys. Like everything you go to is going to have smelly guys. That's just, you know, the way it goes. You can't join both PSL and DSA in Houston, unfortunately. Yeah, probably. Yeah, that sounds like DSA fucking bitch made bullshit. Can you explain what you mean by discernment? I don't really want to attack PSL, honestly, because they've had like dumb scandals in various PSL branches that aren't really even that important. Like, honest to God, they're not important. It's just like individual weirdos being weird. You know what I mean? It's not really shitting on them. I'm not really shitting on them. I honestly regret it. I honestly regret what I said. The thing is, like, I don't want you to try to be too cool. I don't care that DSA has too many liberals in it. I don't give a fuck that you go to DSA and there's people that are going, okay, everyone, now, for those of us who might be sensory sensitive, no clapping today. Like, I find that to be incredibly stupid. But I also understand that if I were to say that in the moment and going, wow, that would make me look like an asshole, and people would all socially correct me. Right? They would go like, ugh, that Mike guy is so rude. Right? Even though I'm right. They would boo me. So you need to understand that. It's just one of those things that people like to busy themselves. People like to busy themselves. Which is, they like to be little busy little bees. They like to be seen as doing things and fiddling with things, right? People don't like to be seen as sitting there and doing nothing. Like, so to busy yourself, you know, you could be a little busy bee by coming up with a long list of etiquette and rules to police. It's a way, it's a shibboleth. Right? Do you guys know what a shibboleth is? Why are you against clapping? It's the opposite. I'm pro clapping. Do you guys know what a shibboleth is? A shibboleth is basically something that you do. It's like a secret handshake. You know what I mean? It is a way that you know that another person is authentically part of your group. It's a phrase or an action or a haircut or any or whatever. Like you could instantly look at someone and go, oh, that person is part of my group. And so the like busying yourself with inclusive language policing is a shibboleth. It both serves as a shibboleth and as a virtue signal in the sense that you're like, oh, I'm a good person. Look how thoughtful I am and empathetic I am. But also, I'm a real leftist because I know what all this shit is. Therefore, I should have a position of authority and a position over you. Like, you don't know all the little signifiers of radical liberalism. Oh, you don't understand xeno pronouns or neo pronouns? Well, then, are you really a leftist? You misgendered someone by saying she when they actually go by they? Or you misgendered someone by saying she when they go by they, them? You are not a real leftist. And it's like, no, that was an unintentional, that was an unintentional thing. I've been speaking, these mistakes are going to happen. No, I don't know you. I don't understand your neo-pronouns. Like those are things that are actually not that big a deal. Mike, DSA has turned into a cult of personality run. One guy who transformed the organ to his own campaign losing machine. He keeps running, sucking up resources and losing. Is this in Milwaukee? Which guy? Which guy are you saying is who are you saying is the cult of personality around? Trust that people are acting in good faith and learn to let things go. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like listen, there's going to be individual DSA chapters that suck, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I just want to know that my chapter did a march on campus to demand they make it a sanctuary campus, and when approached by some people accusing us of being white saviors, we basically told them to sit down and still did the event. Yeah. This is one of the things I would say. Here's one of the things I would say is
I just want to add that thank you, and it's an immense honor to be here, including definitely with Dr. West, who is an influence on me. And one of the major reasons that he's an influence on me is because of that synthesis and the ability to hold multiple truths, that we have to have some sense of a capacity here to do something with democracy, and then also not lie and deceive ourselves about what we are and what capitalism is and what empire is. I came across a speech fragment from Martin Luther King Jr. recently, which I played on my show, and I don't know where or the title of the speech, but I thought it was so important because we've put a lot of work, and we still have to put work into reminding everybody that the man was on the left. He wasn't a guy who came out once a year and said everybody should treat each other nicely. He was a serious... But the other thing that I loved about this speech, which was he talked about the fallacy that certain Christians misunderstood love as a ceding of power. And then Nietzsche came along and rejected Christian morality because he thought it was denying someone's vitality, the will to power in a healthy sense. And he said, love without power is sentimental and anemic, and power without love is abusive and corrosive. I'm paraphrasing. And that was when I saw it, I thought, well, here, okay, we know the left-wing Dr. King. Well, here's the Machiavellian Dr. King, and I love it. I want the left to have Machiavelli so that we can have the strategy, the ruthlessness, the clarity to actually win these battles and be ruthless with institutions. And then I want us to learn how to be really kind to each other, welcoming of a broad set, and actually have a movement that has the capacity to do that. That's why the cancel stuff is relevant that Katie brought up, because it's a stand-in for this eliminationism of other humans, which is neoliberalism enacted. And it's also a contradiction from when we get utopian. It's beautiful. We're the people who sit around and we say, why don't we have a world where there's no prisons? Okay. That's a radical fucking statement. That's a real thing, and we should take it seriously. But then, on the other hand, oh, well, these people could never be part of our coalition because they made a mistake or said something. Like, it's a contradiction in what we're enacting. So,
exactly.
What I get that I hope is in the realm of answering your question.
This is also why and this is my most MikefromPA take. This is also why I love veterans. I love active duty personnel. I love veterans. I want as many of them to join our movement as possible. Not to make their enacting of Empire Abroad is okay. It's because they have military skills. They have broader prestige in society. You may not agree with the way that we hump the flag or salute our troops. You may think it's funny and loser shit, and it is. But there has never been a left-wing movement that won anything without having a significant fraction of the military. Why did the Russian Revolution work? Because they had military members who were what? Conscripts, who were rebelling against the draft, rebelling against World War I. Peace, land, bread. That was the Soviet chant. Peace, land, bread. That's what they said. Very simple. Similarly, you know, this very performative shit. This is one of the differences I have with Bad and Panada. You know, Bad and Panada lives in Argentina, and he's talking about America in a acerbic way, and he's attacking America's empire. And I get it. Makes sense to me. But if you're an American, copying what Bad and Panada is saying about veterans is dumb as fuck. This is one of the big red flags for the American left, by the way. The fact that we don't have a large core of of veterans who are proudly veteran leftists, veterans who are on the left. We need more of those people. That's a sign of victory is approaching. The fact that the right has such a huge advantage talking to veterans is a huge fucking L. Just recently, it was South Korea. Those that have finished their service came together to talk down the armed forces blocking the parliament building. They didn't just talk them down. They beat them up. They physically confronted the coup guys in the fucking hallway of the Capitol building, and they physically stopped them. Could your left-wing group do that? Would you be able to stand in front of the Green Berets and stop them from doing shit? Something to think about. Moving beyond the era of protest. And what I mean by that is protesting in the street is great, but you have to understand that it's a media play. It's for attention. It's for media attention. And at a certain point, you know, you're not really engaging with politics in a serious way by just holding up a sign. I think a lot of people think protests have always existed, and the answer is they haven't. Protests rose with mass media. Prior to mass media, do you know what people would do? They would do revolts. You know, instead of a bunch of people getting together and holding signs and shaking them in the town square, what they would do is they would go and they would grab the officials in their charge of the region they're in, and they would hold them hostage. And they would make demands. And like, this is just factual history, but people don't learn this shit. You're taught this kind of baby media bullshit. And then, you know, you're taught sort of like beliefs that are standalone liberal beliefs. And they don't actually anchor themselves in an understanding of power. Do you think it would make sense to create an organization of leftist military vets? Yes. The goal of protests originally was to be a non-violent revolt. I disagree with you framing it, but you have the here a bit, but the idea of protesting without demands is absolutely counterproductive to change. I think this is a fine reply, by the way. So in short, I agree, but I disagree with the frame origins around media. Post-Enlightenment liberalism has given a rich and diverse history of protests leading to real change, but not recently. This is just wrong. I'm not going to get into... Well, okay, you know what? Let's get into it. The only reason protest movements have seen success is because there was a radical edge and a foreign threat. So the reason why the civil rights movement worked is because of the time that it was taking place, which was the 60s. And there was a competition between the Soviet Union and the United States for the hearts and minds of the third world. And so the United States of America is running around the world saying, we stand for freedom, we stand for liberty, we stand for justice. Nigeria, will you ally with us? Will you give us your oil? Will you sell oil to American corporations? And the Soviet Union was like, look at the way they treat their black Americans as second-class citizens. They're lynching them. They can't vote. They're peons. And that is the situation where, with the protest movements in the South, that American liberalism was facing an external threat and competition for, you know, the hearts and minds of the third world, the non-aligned countries, the decolonizing countries. Which side are they going to interface with? Are they going to lean more towards the socialists? Or are they going to lean more toward the West? And so in order to make that play compelling, plus you had, you know, the historical experience of World War II. You had the experience of black Americans fighting for the cause of the Allies in segregated units, but covering themselves in glory, right? So you had this professional class of black people. You had all that context is what led to the civil rights movement working. And in America, the civil rights movement had a lot of really radical, violent leftists. You had Weather Underground, you had Black Panthers, you had Malcolm X, you had a whole sharp edge, you had riots, you had sharp edges of resistance, a simmering era of threat of actual revolutionary potential. That is what won the thing. It wasn't people holding up signs going, please give us a right, sir. It was a confluence of all of those factors that concessions were won. A lot of these identity leftists completely ignore class analysis. If you bring up class and Marxism, you get strange looks at some of these local mutual aid orgs. Always anti-capitalist and never socialist/communist. Guess they're just anarchists. I mean, there's a lack of militancy and masculinity on the left. Masculinity isn't the right word, but there's too much kumbaya flower child energy and not enough punching Nazis energy, if that makes sense. It's a major turnoff to a lot of people because there isn't a sense of action. Yeah, this is what I call what I call it the hall monitor versus the class clown, or the teacher's pet versus the teacher's pest, right? The right is seen as countercultural or rebellious because they're rebelling against what? Nanny state, smarmy liberalism. And that the left is seen as the etiquette police, right? It is not the place of, like, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. The left is no longer Castro and Che. They had simmering sex appeal. Let's just be honest, right? They had machismo. They were chewing on cigars. They were chucking grenades. They were wearing olive fatigues. What's the left now? What the fuck is the left now? And it's like, I recognize this. Why do you think I'm in Hassan's community? Because Hassan, although quite frankly he's a very gentle man, at least evinces some level of masculinity, some level. The bro shit is good, actually. Anyway, this is, you know, it is what it is.
From this Dr. King clip was left-wing, spiritual, but also with a vision of power. And if we can synthesize those things, I think we will speak to the highest impulses of this country. We will be welcoming to people, and we will win.
I don't agree with Cassie. She's just down. She's liberal.
Know when to hold them, when to fold them. I know you got more questions on there. I fully agree.
I think Michael Brooks dying was legitimately damaging, like, to the world. I hate to like pump up how important us media people are, but unfortunately we are important. I don't think of myself as that important, and I know Hassan doesn't think of himself as that important, but the reality is we are, which is very sad. I gifted some subs in honor of my 1-year subversary. Thank you so much. Sorry if I didn't notice. McBethel, thank you so much for gifting subs and resubbing. Appreciate you. Thank you for the 5. And thank you everybody for resubbing. Did you get Matt Chris's book yet? I did order it. Let me see if I have it. How did it come? Did it come in the mail or was it a package? I ordered a signed one. Skitter Principal, thanks for the 5 tier 1s. Here is the way that the left should work. The left should be utterly ruthless towards its enemies. And it should be incredibly welcoming to anybody who is curious and interested. You guys are educators in an educationalist, anti-learning environment. I know, it's very sad. As a collective, I feel you and the other leftists on Twitch and BreadTube have managed to do an air. I mean, I think YouTube actually sucks, to be honest. I think the leftists on YouTube are a joke, to be honest. I actually think YouTube is dog shit for the left, to be honest. Like, it's kind of shocking just how bad YouTube is. And a lot of the BreadTubers are, quite frankly, have zero leadership potential. And I say that not out of dislike. I like them, but like, I look at somebody like ContraPoints or PhilosophyTube and I'm just like, they squandered that shit. They squandered. They really turned inward and liberalized themselves. And there's nothing that's ever gonna make me become a liberal. Ever. You could give me millions upon millions of dollars and I'm not gonna change at all. You know how awesome that is? Do you know how awesome it is to know that they could never make you sell out? It's very freeing. It's very relaxing to be me. Because I don't have that disgusting hunger for money. I generally think Brooks was assassinated. His opposition understood his importance after his press. I don't know about that. I think that he was sitting in a chair for too long and random chance struck. Philosophy Tube was featured in a role in House of Dragon. They're winning, just not how we want. Oh yeah, they're personally winning as a liberal. Everyone's got a price if the conditions are right for it. Not me. It would be a different thing. You can't buy me out. You'd have to do something else. YT is good for China, though. There are a bunch of Chinese propaganda pretending to be invest bros. All they talk about is show China is great and that you should invest in gold. Yeah, I know. That's another thing. Like, there is not a legitimately good appreciation of the Chinese system on YouTube either. There's like nobody who can like make an argument from a left-wing perspective in favor of China, because there's very few people who, like, most people in America are just anti-Chinese racists. And this includes left-wingers, right? Like, most American leftists just point blank refuse to consider anything about China from an honest perspective. They just literally can't. In their mind, China equals North Korea. And so, I mean, anytime you say anything positive about China, the cope that you get is insane. All right, let's watch something else that's funny and interesting. Look at this. This is really insane. I wanted to show you this because I don't want you guys to think I'm saying abandon trans people or anything like that. I'm actually saying the contrary. It's just the reason. Do you guys understand why trans issues were the issues that were constantly brought up? Do you understand why people were constantly talking about trans people? Because it allowed you to pantomime as being radical without talking about class consciousness, without talking about class antagonism. It allows you to pantomime as a radical, to put on radical progressive posturing while not actually engaging in any kind of radical behavior. And so a lot of people were able to get a lot of clout and attention as progressives because of the trans issue. They didn't actually have a radical critique of anything, really. It was just the most corporate friendly progressivism. That was the, post 2016 era progressivism, right? And and the reason why leftists leaned into it is because it did create a popular front, right? It was something liberals and leftists could talk about that didn't actually, it was a discussion of their agreement. But now the right wing has seen that and they've made a counterplay. The right wing has said, oh, you know what unites the left wing faction? Transgenderism. Let's go after transgenderism. Let's make transgenderism a controversy. Let's make liberals have to fight to defend that position electorally. And you know what liberals do when they have to fight the right wing? They surrender. And so the transgender issue has now fallen away. Why? Because liberals do not fight the right. And so as soon as the right wing said, hey, you're going to have to fight and educate your base, and you're going to have to stand up for trans people, you're going to actually have to confront the right, you're actually going to have to argue your case, they have done the opposite. They have fled the field. And so now everybody who is out there talking about trans rights, you're caught out. Trans people are caught out. Trans liberals most of all. And what are trans liberals doing? There's this one account called Stacey K. I think it may be the worst account on Twitter. Like one of the most aggravating, worthless sacks of shit. An upper middle class, bourgeois, liberal trans woman. And her solution is Yeah, liberals sell out. I could pass. So go ahead, do anti-trans shit. It's so unbelievably disgusting. I can't even. Brianna Wu. Oh God, another example. R-tubs. We don't use that. I'm not trying to police you too much. It's just we don't use that slur because it's just, honestly it's just distracting among everything.
This video presents a summary of key.
Oh God, this is so long, guys. But liberals haven't been actively fighting against anything recently because they don't believe in anything. You have to understand something. The politics that a lot of you came aware in, it was an aberration. The reason why trans issues and immigrant issues and all this stuff was ever being brought up was because it was a way of trying to obscure the differences between the Bernie Sanders coalition and the rest of liberalism. They wanted you to talk about all this shit because they didn't want to talk about class. They didn't want to talk about the rich. They didn't want to talk about Wall Street. So they brought up all this stuff as a way of obscuring. They wanted to make radical liberalism like, oh, you want to vote for Bernie Sanders, but he's a white man. Just vote for Kamala Harris. She's a black woman and she's just as left-wing as Bernie Sanders. That was literally the argument in 2018. But this is freeing. This is good. The liberals are miscalculating. I think that the next 4 years is the best opportunity the left is ever going to have for the rest of my life. As long as the left doesn't capitulate and turn itself into the fucking vote blue no matter who cucks that they just did for 8 fucking years. If the left actually says, fuck liberals, fuck the Democratic Party, let's go for it, baby. If we stop chasing after dog catcher and actually grasp at the brass ring of true power in this country, we might have a fucking chance. I'm so tired of leftists being like, try to be your local comptroller. That'll change everything. No, it won't. No, it fucking won't. I'm not saying don't run for comptroller. I'm just saying you're going to win comptroller and then you're going to find out that that's not the source of power.
As the
well, I'm going to focus on that word vulnerable. And that is the fetish of liberals and people. They fetishize vulnerability. They reify it and they make it seem like, oh, we're helping the vulnerable. We are vulnerable. We can save people. No, a real working class movement emphasizes strength. And I'm so fucking sick of the vulnerability fetish. Oh my God, we're all so need. No, that's not leftist politics. That's liberal politics. If you fetishize vulnerability, that's liberal politics. Yes, we need to protect the health of all Americans because, and I don't know about Canada, but Americans are abused by big food and big ag. This country is sick. RFK Jr., like as crazy as it is, he realizes that it's industrial agriculture that's made people so sick. But the thing is that to fight against it is not to emphasize our vulnerability, but to emphasize the strength in numbers that can actually make a change in the organization of big ag. It feels so desperate when we're all alone. That's
what liberals want you to feel. Liberals want you to feel doomer. That's why I think being doomer is a sign of your own liberalism. I have never felt doomer. I just don't feel doomer. If you feel doomer, you are weak. You are pathetic. Like you personally. Because think about what feeling doomer means. It means that you lack the imagination and you lack the will and you're frightened. Those are all flaws of you, not us. That's you. You lack the imagination. You're frightened. You're impotent. That's nobody else but yourself. So kill the liberal in your mind and stand up. What are you so scared of? Dying? Like, what are you so scared of?
These ideas or trying to round up a group of people and make.
Yeah, bro. Environmental collapse is terrifying. You know what's terrifying? You know what's terrifying? Something that you can't understand. Something that you didn't see coming. Something that you can't beat. Environmental collapse is terrifying. There's nothing terrifying about it. It is about engineering. It is about social control. It is about power. We understand how to save the planet already. We already know how to do it. What's terrifying is people are terrified about doing this stuff. It's like saying, tying my shoes is terrifying. Why? You know how to tie it. Grab one string, grab the other. Start tying the shoe. Stop whining about how it's so scary. That's the type of shit I'm talking about. There's no shame in being afraid. There's no shame in feeling emotions. The shame is in allowing them to control you. That is having emotions and allowing them to tell you that you are powerless. That's shameful. Being scared is not shameful. Being depressed is not shameful. Being lonely is not shameful. What is shameful is allowing those feelings to paralyze you from your will, what you desire to do. That's the shameful part. Being scared of the roller coaster, not shameful. Refusing to go on because of that fear, even though you want to, that is the shameful thing. I actually think that's a really good question. Like, if you're with a group of people, Ajax with the 100 gifted holy shit. If you know something is safe, if you know something is vetted, but it's going to cause you to have some sort of feel a certain type of way that may be uncomfortable, and you opt out, that is a personal flaw. Hey, Jack, thank you for the 100 tier 1 subs, man. You are the best. Mike, what was it? Okay, what was it? I'm a materialist, so I realize doomerism is an epiphenomenon of underlying material conditions and the political reality. So that kind of stuff starts disappearing when we build real power and offer them real alternatives. Insulting them isn't going to work, just like Dems insulting non-voters. No. I'm not just... You're right, by the way. I agree with you. But I'm changing the material realities, which you don't understand. Which your materialism is a little shallow because you don't understand that a socially unacceptable opinion is changing material realities. Social norms change material realities. And I'll tell you because why? Because other people will start telling you to stop it. Right? Like, if I'll give you an example. If it's a social norm to take a shit in the middle of the street, more people are going to take a shit in the middle of the street, which leads to the material realities of sewage, human sewage and waste on the streets that allows a buildup of vermin, that allows a buildup of disease, that causes a social condition, right? But if anytime someone tries to take a shit in the middle of the street, everybody's yelling at them, they get arrested, somebody comes and cleans it up, less people are going to take a shit in the street. Just the social conditioning around a specific action changes material conditions. So I think of doomerism as the political equivalent of taking a shit in the middle of the street. It accomplishes nothing. It's entirely comes from somebody from within one person, and it causes a mess for everybody else to clean up. If you have to take a shit, go to the toilet. If you're feeling doomer, go get to work. That's the type of thing I'm trying to create. I'm trying to create a social milieu among the left wingers to say, if you feel doomer, that's a sign you need to get to work. You're feeling a little too lazy. You're not engaged enough. That's what so does that analogy make sense? Like you're saying like, oh, I'm not yelling at doomers to tell them they suck as they're a bad person. I'm telling them that doomerism is a sign that they need to get to work. Doomerism is taking a shit in the middle of the street. And just cut that out. That's what I'm saying. The one thing I'm scared of is dying too soon and leaving my son behind, not ready to face the world. It weighs on me constantly. How do you ever prepare a kid for this world? Well, instead of worrying about preparing your kid for the world, prepare your kid for the world. Teach them a skill. Spend time with them. Go play catch. Teach them to play an instrument. Take them to a museum. Share them your favorite book or movie. Teach them something about life. How to change oil. Do something with your child that will make them a slightly better person than they were the day before. Every time you feel that anxiety in you about your son, go do something with your son. Drop what you're doing, go do something with your son. As an accelerationist, being doomer is pretty sweet. I don't have to do anything. You're not an accelerationist unless you're accelerating. All right, how are you accelerating? Sitting on your ass is not accelerating. I have an EV. I don't need to change oil. Rotate your tires. Anyway, but I get, by the way, that materialist chatter, really good comment. See, that's called a good comment, chat. Intelligent, tried to teach us a vocab word and of epiphenomenon, and also critiqued me, but in an intelligent way, which is like, Mike, you're just doing voter shaming. And the answer is I'm not, but I get what you're saying, and that helps me refine my argument. Good chat, man. I appreciate you. I disagree with what I was doing is voter shaming. I'm just telling people I'm trying to create a social milieu. And by the way, voter shaming is actually in the interest of liberals. This is what you're not understanding. It actually is materialist. They're trying to create an environment, and they've done a very good job of it, where leftists don't try to create their own political parties because of frustration with the liberal program, right? They created Vote Blue No Matter Who as a social belief to enforce compliance with liberal status quo. Oh, you don't want to vote for the Democrats? You're causing all damage. You're to blame now. It is purposeful. Now, it doesn't work always, but it does help liberal parties succeed in marginal situation where they might have otherwise failed. It's not a catch-all. It's not going to succeed. And the reason why I push back against Vote Blue No Matter Who is not because it's not effective. It's because it's an effective counter to me, which is I don't want you to vote blue no matter who. I want you to exercise power and influence over the Democratic Party. And if you just vote blue no matter who, if you can be ignored and you're going to show up anyway, then you have no power and no leverage. I want us to have leverage so the Democratic Party moves to the left. So I'm anti-blue no matter who. Their thing is not irrational. It's rational for their position, which is to convince leftists to just vote Democrat no matter what the Democrats say or do. That's rational for a Democrat. That's rational for the person getting the vote. Anyway, really good comment because it's very thought-provoking. and challenging, and it made me better. So thank you for that comment. That's why I like people disagreeing with me. When you can disagree with me intelligently, it makes the stream better. Thank you for being an intelligent chatter. Would an accelerationist be like burning tires? What would it? I can't tell you what an accelerationist would be doing because I'll go to prison. Unfortunately, I can't tell you. But let's just say, look at the history of Luigi's in Italy. Vote blue no matter who was a tool used after 2016 to unseat Republicans in red states. Idiot liberals on Twitter turned it into something that is devoid of thought or logic, and the devs bought it. Of course. My wife doesn't understand how I stay optimistic. She gets doomer at times, but I'm the one going to DSA meetings, knocking on doors for socialist candidates, and going to protests. So I see how possible real change is. It really does help if you actually go do some work if you're feeling doomer. Mike's right. Not only that, there is no better feeling on this world than the ecstasy of solidarity. There's one thing that'll bring a tear to my eye. It's solidarity. Nothing is like it. When you can finally connect with other people beyond the things that divide us, that is the spirituality of leftism. That is the feeling that a lot of people get in church, right? Why do people go to church? You may ask yourself, if you're not religious, you might go like, why do people go to church? Because they go and they have a communal experience of love. The best communal experience of love is accomplishing something in solidarity with others. That is far better than worshiping some guy who died thousands of years ago and set up a little cult. That's why I love You've Been Playing the International every day. The point of that song is to show you that the people of China, there's a lot of flaws with the Chinese government, but the people of China, you want doomer? Go to China in the 1920s. That's fucking doomer, okay? I don't think Americans really even get it. Like, that's the thing they don't understand. Go to China in the 1920s. That's fucking doomer. The best communal experience of love is gifting subs and subscribing to the Central Committee at Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3. No, that's not true. A lot of Matt Christman's Kushcast talk about the exact feeling. The next leftist movement requires a spiritual connection of humanity. I'm not as fixated on the spiritual aspects of experience like Matt Christman is. That's kind of, I'm more, I appreciate it, but it's sort of like how I appreciate music. I like music, but let's just say I'm more of the cogs and gears type.
Live with them. We have people, they love micro and niche projects. And this is what's just making me so depressed about left liberal politics right now, is that this fetishism for vulnerability. The book that I wrote about trauma is going to come out with this much more clearly articulated, but the very notion of political subjectivity has to change in order for us to be able to build anything that looks like a revolution. Because if you're going to be fetishizing each other's vulnerabilities and demanding recognition from each other all the time so that you become mutual etiquette police, you will never ever change a goddamn thing. You have no idea how powerful capital is. And if you're going to be like, well, asking for recognition because you're vulnerable, you are fucked. And they fucked you already, and you're fucked. About the creation of any kind of strength or autonomy or agency through solidarity, that has to be remade. And you know what? I'm not optimistic for this generation, your generation, or the next. They were fucked by coronavirus. Like, how are we going to actually produce a kind of comity of people who find strength and ambition together, a collective ambition to change the world, rather than individualized grievances that collect as a set of grievances for which we demand recognition. Vulnerability was actually the word that was the critical word here. Great.
Very well said. You articulated kind of my gripe with this phenomenon way better than I could have, because I remember sometimes arguing with leftists on what I thought would be common sense ideas. Like, for example, I was like, open borders in a global capitalist economy is a very stupid idea. And it would be a kind of a wet dream to people who would want to exploit cheap legal migrant labor. And then they were saying, no, the idea of an illegal itself is a fascist concept. And I was thinking about, like, okay, even if you believe that one day in hypothetical communist world you want to get rid of borders and nations, okay, whatever, as a political strategy right now, it's a pretty silly idea to emphasize open borders. And they said, but we can't give up on the vulnerable, and they're more vulnerable. And you hear this a lot with the issues like trans issues and all kind of different issues where, so I'm very libertarian on like those kind of issues.
Can't give up on the vulnerable.
Yeah, well, it's like I had an argument with a sort of PMC leftist once, and I said, okay, like, why not take the strategy of you can be pro-trans rights, but maybe don't like put the most fringe trans issues on the front of your platform and talk about that more than the issues where you might have popularity on.
And this is exactly the thing that I've been attacked for the most in my career. People have called me, this is a good take. This is a correct take. People have called me a class reductionist. And the reality is I'm exactly the same. I'm extremely pro, self-expression. I might even call myself a gender abolitionist. But I also understand that is a fringe academic belief that I spent a lot of time reading books that none of you read to come to. All right. This is not something that regular people out on the street are going to understand. Most people have this kind of live and let live personality. They don't understand trans people, but they think trans people should be able to live their life as they see fit. We could work with that. We win power and then we pass policies to support trans people in their lives. Like if we get Medicare for all, as technocrats, we could slip in there that what is medically necessary according to science is the treatment that trans people get. And then you know who we put in the positions of power to determine what is medically necessary? Pro-trans people. That's how you accomplish it. And then over time, you follow the same thing we did with gay rights, which is you show, trans people get more and more visibility. And then before you know it, it's accepted. It's the same fucking strategy. But people are no longer about winning. It's about posturing in front of other people and going like, I'm the most pro-trans right person on the left or whatever the fuck, which is actually me. But it doesn't matter. But the thing is, a lot of people do not see politics about meeting people where they are and then taking them to where you want to go. That's what politics is. I'll say that again. Politics is meeting people where they are and taking them where you want to go, instead of standing where you want to be alone. And like, that is like, if you're seeing this and you're hearing this and you're going like, no, we need to say this and we need to say this, you've fallen into the liberal trap of posturing and expressing your own virtue is more important than power. Politics is about power. It's very convenient. They both start with P, so you're not confused, okay? Politics is not about, I am the best person and the most moral person in the world. How much do you think this is a real problem, though, versus just people yapping on the internet? I think it is a problem because I exist in organizing spaces. And there's a lot of grifters. And there's a lot of people that are constantly trying to create these interpersonal fights. And this is another thing that is, I haven't talked about this yet, but I need to start talking about it, because if I plunge myself into politics again more, I'm going to need your guys to back me up. And I don't need you guys to be backbiting me. If you're going to be backbiting me on this now, you need to leave. And the reason why I'm saying that is Because let's say, for example, that I got involved in politics and I wanted to run for something or I wanted to take a leadership position. The number one thing people are going to say is, Mike is a white, straight, cis man. We don't need more white, straight, cis men in positions of power. Period. That's the number one attack that people will go after. If you guys are going to shake your heads yes to that, then get the fuck out of here. Like, honestly, get out. Stop learning from me then. Get out. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need trans people in leadership. I'm not saying we shouldn't try to, talk to black people about their issues and have black leaders. Of course we should. But if you're going to entertain the idea that, oh, we don't want Mike because he's a white, straight, cis man, that's exactly what they did to Bernie Sanders. But why did they do that? Is it because they actually care about any of those things? Those same people went around and voted for fucking Joe Biden. They never cared about that. It was just an interpersonal play. Because I care about trans liberation, because I care about racism, and you do too, they were manipulating you. They were manipulating you for personal power, and you fell for it. Don't be a mark. They were like, oh, you're white. Be quiet. Now, was that an argument about what you were saying? Was that an argument about your thoughts? No, it was an interpersonal play to shut you up so they could win. Don't be a dope. So get DEI out of activism? Got it. I would say that if by diversity, equity, inclusion, you mean haranguing people because of their race as opposed to argument, then yes, I would say get that out. And honestly, the professional corporate lib DEI shit is garbage anyway. It doesn't accomplish shit. I dissuade party members from putting down people who do not understand. Even people who are unenlightened and seemingly bourgeois should be answered in a polite way. I try to be cordial because that's the way you win people over. You cannot win them over by drawing the line of demarcation, saying you are on this side and I am on the other. That shows a lack of consciousness. After the Black Panther Party was formed, I nearly fell into this error. I could not understand why people were blind to what I saw so clearly. Then I realized that their understanding had to be developed. There's the one thing I would say about this is I partially agree with this, but I partially disagree with this. I agree with within organizing spaces, you should not do this. Against your enemies, you should do this. You know, we're not going to win over everybody. You need to be able to understand the difference between an enemy and an ally. You need to be able, like, a lot of this stuff is contextual. Anyway, moving on.
They said, no, that's seizing ground to the right, and that is going to damage the vulnerable. And I my God.
Most of my trans friends really hate the fact that the liberals have weaponized that issue in this particular way. So when you pretend to speak for the vulnerable, you are taking the most PMC position. Because when a true mass politics comes to being, or when the revolution happens, it's only because of the strength of the masses. And not people going, oh, peasants, you really suffered. It's like the inspiring thing about Mao's revolution, about Lenin's revolution, was the power that people saw in themselves reflected in the masses, and in their ability to change things. A lot of things didn't change in both, Bolshevik Russia and communist China, but there's certainly, you liberated like 300 million serfs from serfdom and 800 million peasants from absolutely dire poverty and debt peonage to landlords. So there was a whole reorganization of the productive forces of a population, and there was redistribution. It didn't work out perfectly, and it's still in process in China. In Russia, it's all oligarchical now. But when you think about like a class war, you don't wage it by saying we have to, be vulnerable and then expect other people. It's like a blackmail when you say, oh, yes, we're protecting the vulnerable. And if you criticize me, you're criticizing the vulnerable. That's like the total liberal blackmail. It's like,
it's interpersonal leverage. That's what they're trying to do. They create these environments where it's like, oh, you disagree with me on this specific issue. That means that you are doing bigotry. And you as a socialist, you are very concerned about doing bigotry. You don't want to do bigotry. And you're like, oh man, am I being anti-Semitic right now? Am I being racist right now? And you stop what you're doing. But they don't care about it. They just want you to stop, and they can't argue against what you're doing, so they attack you. And the reason why I'm talking about this is what Ethan Klein is trying to do, right? The way he's too stupid to do it. He doesn't have the leftist cred to do it, but he's trying to do it. It's a strategy he's seen work before, so he's trying to do it. Oh, Mike from PA or Hassan, they're champagne socialists. They're anti-Semites. They're misogynists. Do you think Ethan Klein cares about any of those things? He knows that I do, however. I do care. And so he's trying to use it to get interpersonal leverage, and he's trying to trick any dope who will fall for it. You need to make yourself immune to getting duped like this. They hyper-focused on trans issues for a decade, and now they're confiscating trans people's passports. And liberals are not saying a fucking word. This is what the French media does to the left party, call them anti-Semitic, etc. Pathetic.
No, we have to find strategies to build mass politics.
That's what they did to Jeremy Corbyn. The only reason they don't call Bernie Sanders anti-Semitic is because he's Jewish. But they call him a self-hating Jew when nobody can hear.
Putting strength on strength. And what you were saying about common sense is that PMC vanguardists hate common sense. They hate it.
They love this word, heteronormativity. They hate heteronormativity.
Right. They hate normativity. But the other thing I was thinking about was that in the most extreme.
And by the way, chat, let's just break down norms. What are norms? Norms are just expectations of behavior. They're cultural folkways. They are the ways that you expect. Like a norm, for example, is wearing clothes. Wearing clothes is not human beings are not born clothed. There's a large cultural and productive effort going to giving you clothes. And the shapes and the designs of those clothes are also norms, right? Hairstyle, all sorts of things that we do are just social rules we invented. When you're attacking those norms, you have to say okay, this social rule has negative utility.
In cases, they want to punish you for apperceptive responses, like stimuli responses. This is why it is an etiquette straitjacket, is that they want you to feel completely inhibited when dealing with other people for fear of offending them. It's really, truly horrifying.
Yeah.
Because we live in such antisocial times already. But if you are going to create a new net of etiquette in which you can catch offenders, then you just give up on normal people, ordinary people who are just who are trying to survive and who are looking for some kind of social bond that will make them feel less alone with regard to all the powerful forces that are working against them. From our foodways to our work culture to our healthcare system.
Don't ban.
Does that tie into academic anti-elitism a little bit? Because what I find interesting is in academia, it's filled with a lot of people who are against stuff like standards, education standards, or teaching aspects of history because they might be offensive to the vulnerable, as if Black people are so not intelligent that they would can't look at a Jefferson statue without being traumatized. It's so infantilizing and almost kind of more racist sometimes than what they criticize.
The thing that I was looking at when I wrote American Idol was that there's kind of anti-canon animus in the academy, like we have to destroy the traditions. We can't look at the Enlightenment. We can't read the classics because we can only read like what's popular and edgy as part of our political expression. Is that when you looked at the emancipation of the African Americans and the establishment of African American schools, there was a real bifurcation where Booker T. Washington wanted people to have vocational training, but people like W.E.B. Du Bois and other, we'd say like bourgeois elite African Americans, they wanted training in the classics, and they wanted like classical humanities education along with scientific, speculative, thematic education for African Americans, and not just applied like what we'd have today, like computer science is supposed to just get you that job, or business. Like the aspirations that the PMC elites thought people wanted was just like things that were quote unquote relatable. That was not a grassroots aspiration. That was something that came up with the rise of
this is how the right wing wins, by the way. This is how the right wing wins.